Harvard University, the favorite school of every Asian parent for which they send their children to take violin lessons, Korean, Japanese, and to learn 15 different musical instruments in total before becoming an astronaut in order to gain admission. Sepupus, Harvard is the home of the winners of this world. A place where US presidents, tech entrepreneurs, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and various other people of this era are bred, coached, and led into their roles as leaders of the free world. And so, what is the most natural thing to do in the world when you have something like that? Well, suppose
if you're the Trump administration,
it's to cancel it. Basically, Harvard's been fighting with the US government for some time now. The US government has been making all sorts of wild Trump-era claims, which are damning, incriminating, listed on the Department of Homeland Security website as facts. We don't know whether they're true facts or not true facts, but either way, they are there, and if true, then it's interesting.
And now, it's escalated.
Sepupus, the Harvard situation right now, it's crazy. Basically, Secretary Christine Noem dropped a hot tweet just the other day saying this administration is holding Harvard accountable for fostering violence, antisemitism, and coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party on its campus. It is a privilege, not a right, for universities to enroll foreign students and benefit from their higher tuition payments to help pad their multi-billion-dollar endowments, and boom, just like that, Harvard's Student and Exchange Visitor program was decertified, and now the entirety of Harvard's international student population is in limbo.
It'll be much worse if not for the court order, so thanks, Judge Burroughs. But yes, let's explore this round of drama.
I'm writing to inform you that effective immediately, Harvard University's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification is revoked. As I explained to you in my April letter, it is a privilege to enroll foreign students, and it is also a privilege to employ aliens on campus. All universities must comply with Department of Homeland Security requirements, including reporting requirements under the SEVIS program regulations to maintain this privilege. As a result of your refusal to comply with multiple requests to provide the Department of Homeland Security pertinent information while perpetuating an unsafe campus environment that is hostile to Jewish students, promotes pro-Hamas sympathies, and employs racist diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Wow. You have lost this privilege. Wow. Some people out there are railing against it, even if you're in Malaysia, just being all like, how dare you say such a thing? But you know, like, the very same people are possibly going to go out there and then start raging against Bumi Putra policies, when actually they are basically the same thing. The revocation of your Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification means that Harvard is prohibited from having any aliens on F or J non-immigrant status for the 2025 to 2026 academic school year. This decertification also means that existing aliens on F or J non-immigrant status must transfer to another university in order to maintain their non-immigrant status. Wow.
Okay, I know some of you are parents and students, so let's understand this together.
Sepupus, if you don't know, basically, SEVP allows the school to issue what we call an I-20, which is what you basically need as an international student to apply for what we call an F1 visa, which I'm sure a lot of you out there who got into Harvard or whatever university are going through at the moment. As you go over to the US Embassy, do your interview, where they ask you, are you a terrorist? And you obviously say no. It also means, by the way, that if you are one of the 2 Malaysian undergrads who got into Harvard this year, or if you're an international student anywhere across the world and you got into Harvard and you're trying to go off, you accepted your offer and now you want to fly over to the US, well, I'm sorry, but I guess you can't.
If the temporary restraining order isn't extended, that is. But let's be a bit more exact about that.
If you are a current international student, you are affected. If you were admitted for fall 2025, you are affected. If you are a future applicant, you are affected as well.
I guess some of you actual Harvard students can go to Hong Kong as a consolation prize.
This is a pretty huge thing because Harvard actually enrolls a lot of international students.
Definitely some not very ordinary people, like politicians, sons of politicians, UN Secretary Generals, writers, and even royalty. Which is why this move triggered responses from Harvard clubs, from news, politicians, and the media.
Literally, right now, there are 6,793 international students, making up like 27% of the student body, that are at risk of basically completely losing their status, losing their visas, their entire lives just gone. It's super crazy for me because I have a lot of friends who went to Harvard. Literally, if you just go on Pathways to Excellence right now, you search down the list and you'll see conversations between me and at least 10 people who study at Harvard. I basically know all of them. I go for Harvard Club of Malaysia events, left, right, front, and center. And you know what's funny? We actually did a Trump event last year where somehow I managed to convince this one girl to wear this Make America Great Again hat right here.
But yeah, let's talk about why this is really happening.
This is happening because Harvard is basically punishing the entire international student population for the actions of a couple of people that the United States government says is not demonstrating American values. Which is very interesting because I think that some people could very well argue that doing this sort of thing is not very American at all. I mean, like, yeah, just look at this list of things that Secretary Noem wants. I'm not gonna read everything out here, like, are you crazy? But you can see right here is basically just like video footage, evidence, anything that basically will allow the US government to implicate their students, like anybody who was involved in the protests, so-called voicing out, trying to be heroes and saving the United States and making it into the United States of Palestine. Wow. Yeah, I have no idea how exactly Harvard is going to comply to that. I don't know what would actually satisfy the Department of Homeland Security because if you think about it, like when you say official, formal or informal, like what exactly does that mean? Like if a random student happens to have TikTok videos about people taking part in a protest, then does that count as informal footage? And if somehow or another, the university staff did not download that specific TikTok video and did not provide it to Harvard University, then does that count as a violation?
But yeah, remember that the Trump administration is targeting individuals.
So I actually wouldn't put it past the Trump administration to have a literal contest for people to go and sell out their classmates, take pictures, videos, identify people, provide information about the protesters, the people who were going out and then yapping, in order to remain one person betrays one person and then boom, like somehow or another everything is going to be great, it's G, it's fine. That could actually happen. I have to say though, it's not like I don't understand where this is coming from. We had college protests all across the country, featuring a bunch of people out there who were allegedly fighting for justice and then screaming, from the river to the sea, Palestine will, or something of that nature. It's basically something that started with the October 7th attacks, which I'm probably gonna get cancelled for because people are gonna say it didn't start on October 7th. But anyway, the college protest started off with Columbia, then it started spreading like wildfire all around the other universities. There were encampments at Portland State University. There was even an encampment at U Chicago, my alma mater. And then of course, then there was a whole encampment at Harvard as well. Coalition after coalition of people just casually coming out and declaring that they are heroes of the modern day Vietnam War and on the right side of history. And pretty much just trying to scream so that people will end up listening to them.
Oh yeah, and some people who even threatened people who didn't agree with them. Like Anil Raj, for whom I made a police report.
I know that some people out there might very well end up saying that, well, this is us fighting for justice. We are the heroes of the modern era. How dare you speak against humanity and stuff of that nature right there. But you know, I want to bring in actually this idea of freedoms. The whole argument that a lot of people make about Harvard needing to protect all of these people out there is that they need to protect freedom of speech. Academic discourse can only happen in the marketplace of ideas if actually people can hold things to account and speak truth to power sort of thing right there. But see, to kind of respond to that, I do want to mention something that I heard actually from Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, whom I met, interestingly enough, in Malaysia last year, and I think it's quite relevant. He basically quoted Isaiah Berlin in saying, "Freedom for the wolves has often meant death to the sheep." Now what that means is that if you actually just let every single person in the world be so-called free to do anything that you want, then what ends up happening is that you end up actually destroying the lives of people out there. I think that was very much the case with a lot of students who were actually involved in these protests, which true, it's an exercise of your freedom. But the problem is, right, like there's also another separate freedom, which is the freedom to pretty much enjoy the premises of your school just without interruption. The thing is that these freedoms actually fight with one another, which is why anytime you start thinking about a situation where like, oh, we should have like perfect freedom, it almost always comes into a problem because you start realizing that, well, other people have the freedom to not be harass, disturb, or basically gaslit into listening to what you have to say 24/7 out there. But I think that we as a society haven't really been very good at managing this just yet. Like, it's way too easy for us to just decide like, oh, if you stop people from speaking out in some way, then boom, it's basically a violation of the First Amendment, when actually there's a lot more nuance to it.
And yes, call it justice all you want, but there are genuinely bad people out there.
See, the thing also about a lot of these protesters out there, the people who are casually going out and then trying to make Palestine their entire business, all day, all night, without stopping, free Mahmoud Khalil type thing out there, is that they somehow just have this feeling that people must be obligated to listen to them. Whether they admit it or not, right? Like, they actually take things beyond like, oh, we should have the freedom to express ourselves, towards basically just assuming that like, oh, people have to listen to us, and we can basically say things in the rudest possible way, and we should be celebrated as heroes for that. I see a lot of these people out there who are just like being rude unnecessarily to people who don't want to do what these people are suggesting, and then these people somehow feel the right, the entitlement to go out there and yap even more without stopping.
A small example for you.
You need fucking help, David. You will die and you will realize that everything you did for humanity has destroyed it. You have blood in your hands. You have blood all over your fucking face, David.
No. But like, yeah, a license to speak is not a license to have people listen to you. But somehow or another, these people just don't actually seem to realize that that's the case, or they are intentionally choosing not to realize that, which is like kind of weird if you think about it. There are even these people out there who are casually like playing victim and then like acting as if they don't have any responsibility and telling people, you have to forever share on Facebook or otherwise and say that, you have to free Palestine over and over again, because somehow they cannot get the realization straight that yes, you can speak, but once you said your piece, then maybe it's time to let everybody just go back to studying and to shut up. It's kind of like, for example, you live in a house, right? In your house, you generally expect to be like safe, sound, warm, or whatever it is that you're actually looking for in a house at that point in time. But imagine if your neighbor just goes out there and just starts screaming all day and all night without stopping, chaos 25/7. And then when that happens over and over again, you go and confront your neighbor, and then they end up saying, well, I'm using my freedom of expression. I think most people will be all like, no, I'm calling the cops. Because it's not reasonable for a person to go out there and just insist that you end up listening to their crap all day and all night. In a similar way, if you want to express yourself, you need to know when and how to stop. Like, if you're going out there and you're literally just pushing people and trying to get them to comply and saying like, oh, you need to listen to me over and over again, you're moving beyond expressing yourself by that point, and you are actually moving yourself into harassing people, forcing them to comply, and then just creating a nuisance. There's a distinction between that and being able to voice your grouses. But let me tell you, a lot of these people out there, they cannot tell the difference. They do not want to tell the difference, and they will just casually make trouble for everyone out there. We see it in the United States with these college protests. We see it in Singapore with the two sisters, and yeah, it's a shit show. But what's also funny is that a lot of these people are going to casually ignore every single thing that happened with Hamas. It is true that the deaths from the conflict have been disproportionately on the side of the Palestinians, and also unfortunate Palestinians have essentially been terminated in hospitals, schools, and everywhere out there. It's not a conscionable situation. But like, a lot of these people, the way that they seem to make the argument is that basically, well, because there have been so many people who have died in Palestine so far, you're not allowed to talk about this whole situation that's happening in Israel. It's not valid. How dare you? Yup. Ignore. Even as they hold up mirrors in front of themselves and say that like, oh, I am on the side of justice. What justice? If you think about it, it's like so blatantly obvious that they're just favoring one particular narrative, and they are just choosing intentionally not to actually deal with the elephant in the room. Well, friends, let a million theologically irrelevant flowers bloom. I'm sure that you'll have a wonderful time with this whole situation right here. But I want to take a moment to express empathy for a quick bit. I mean, I did say that a lot of people out there that I know, that I associate with, are going to be affected by this because of their Harvard affiliation. So my condolences to everybody out there in the Harvard community who is going to be affected by this. It's very unfortunate that this Trump administration has decided to basically perform what is essentially collective punishment upon the entire international student community. Of course, in this case right here, if you were to find the individuals who are actually responsible for this kind of thing out there and actually take action against them, I think that that could help a little bit out there. It doesn't stop the fact that there is this collective punishment upon the university at the moment, but it is what it is. I'm sure that some of you out there might be all like, you know, this is all about justice. This is a pill that all of us have to swallow. But I guess you have to kind of ask yourself, right? Like, do you seriously care? Or have you only been pretending to care about this whole issue in the first place because at the end of the day, it feels right to you. You want to go out there and you want to express your opinions. If your answer is that you don't actually care, then, well, I think helping could actually be a thing right there. But yeah, like, I think that this decision is gonna affect a lot of people to a very large degree. I'm sure that there are a lot of parents out there who are basically just thinking like, look, I can't send my kids to Harvard anymore out there. Of course, you can always go to like different schools. There are plenty of other schools in the US which basically don't have the unique status that Harvard has at this moment right there. I think that those are perfectly fine. I think the value proposition of a US education still remains and it is still beneficial, even though of course there are undoubtedly some challenges when it comes to actually competing in the first place. It's still tremendously competitive. There are still lots of people who are trying to get into the United States to study there, to build lives there, to create careers, and ultimately to contribute to the world with the unparalleled resources and access that America's elite world continues to provide to an unparalleled extent. I did receive a US education. It's a very good education and I enjoy my time in the US at the University of Chicago. I do offer hourly consultations for questions about US education, which you can go ahead and book if you like. But yeah, to the Harvard community, I think that this is very unfortunate because there are a lot of international students at Harvard University, and make no mistake, this is going to be a generational, transitional break in their lives. My condolences to all of you out there who are affected by the situation at the moment. Like, it's unfortunate. I hope that somehow or another things end up going for the better and you'll be able to attend the university as soon as you possibly can, rather than just be constantly under this state of threat and fear and just thinking to yourself, well, looks like I don't have school anymore. Anyway, even if it isn't solved for the better, you guys got into Harvard, you're probably smarter than me, you can survive and thrive through this entire universe. I'm not denying that this could be the very worst thing that any of you have experienced or will ever experience in this entire lifetime, and I don't claim to understand what you're actually going through, but the fact is that you have to be pretty smart to get into Harvard. In fact, one of the smartest in the world. Obviously, it doesn't stop some people from coming up with some very twisted visions of what is acceptable and what is not, but when it comes down to it, like, the whole selection criteria in the first place was that you are likely to conquer the world, to succeed in some way or another. It's just that Harvard offered this opportunity to grow in an academic environment. So, well, think of it as a chance, I guess, to learn about other opportunities. I mean, if you're transferring out from Harvard, I'm sure that you'll definitely find like some very good places to go to and otherwise. I mean, like, if you think that you're having trouble right now, but somehow you're still watching this video, and whatever the situation, I'm confident that you can overcome it. So buckle up, deal with the problem, and however you solve it, whenever you solve it, I look forward to hearing about your success in that journey to come. Alright, and that's all to say about that, and bye.